Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Bills Guys, presented by Buffalo Fanatics. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis. And I am joined, as always, by my co-host with a new haircut, Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. I'm not going to lie to you, Dave. I forgot to do the math today because I was a little distracted with all the hosts we've been on. But it's somewhere in the 50s. We are less than 60 days away from Buffalo Bills football, that August 14th preseason game. And in order for the people to get themselves prepared for this season, I highly suggest you head over to the Buffalo Fanatics Podcasting Network. We are the only podcasting network that brings you a show daily, not just week daily, but daily. The Overreaction Podcast, the Code of Conduct Pod, the NFL Basement, Buck City, Bills Overdue, and us, the Bills Guys. So if you guys, the viewers, can do us a huge, huge favor, head over to Apple Podcasts. If you use Apple Podcast as your sort of tool to listen to our podcasts, and subscribe and review to the Buffalo Fanatics Podcasting Network. It's going to go a long way to helping us move up in the rankings over there at, I keep wanting to call it iTunes, but it's just Apple Podcasts now. And if you can do us an even bigger favor, weekly, if you can unsubscribe and resubscribe, it'll really help us move up the podcasting ranking, and all of your favorite podcasts will move on up those rankings, moving on up, right? So without further ado, you guys were probably all distracted by the fact that we have multiple guests here today from the Hoof Podcast and the Colorado Bills backers. We are joined by Eric, Anthony, and Sterling today. Sterling, I'm going to let you lead it off and introduce the people watching right now what it is the Hoof Podcast is all about.
Yeah, man, it's the three of us. You know, we vary in opinion, right? Anthony is the molecular biologist. He thinks he's so smart. Eric is just from New York. I mean, he's homegrown, and I'm the dude that loved the Bills from all the way down to Tennessee. But we all kind of met in Colorado. We serve and help out at Colorado Bills Backers Weekly. And we this is our third season doing our podcast. We're the new kids on the block. We kind of, taking the first 2 years of learning the ins and outs. But, man, we just love to talk crap, have fun, bro. So thanks for having us on, man.
Yeah, no problem. Eric, how about you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I'm Eric. I'm actually from Syracuse area. Grew up in a small town around there. And, moved out to Colorado. My wife got into a school out here, so been out here for about 4 years now. That's where I met these good-looking guys. And it's funny because Sterling and I used to meet at like a brewery once a week through a community event. And we would literally just take over the show and talk Bills for a whole hour and a half. We're like, we should probably record this,
Yeah.
I added Anthony this year, so things are really, really going well for us right now. It's still early, but
all right. So I actually made an appearance on these guys' podcast about 2 days ago, right? 3 days ago from last week, and I keep thinking it's Monday. It's Thursday. That's COVID for you. But you noticed the guitar in the background of my room.
Oh, yeah.
You asked me if I played a guitar, and I don't actually play a guitar. It's just for show. I won it in a raffle. So here I am with a comment from Chris, ready to put you on blast here, because he says, "Hey, are you a Yankees fan? Tell him what hat you were wearing when we were recording."
Yo, hey, I was wearing a Boston hat, but look though, see, I rock almost every team. Depends on what I'm wearing. I have more Yankees hats though than anything. And if I had to pick a Major League Baseball team outside of the Seattle Mariners, it's definitely the Yankees. So, yeah.
All right. Aimee says, "Hey guys, nice to see you again, Aimee, one of our loyal listeners and one of our loyal viewers. Thank you so much." All right, Anthony, the man in the suit, saving the best for last. Introduce yourself to the viewers here a little bit.
What's up, everybody? I'm Anthony, and yeah, that's what I'm known as, the man in the suit. I wear this for the Bills games at the Bills Backers Bar here in Colorado, and like the guy said, that's where we met. I'm also the loudest guy in the bar, so not afraid to let my opinion be heard, that's for sure. So it's great getting onto the show with you guys and doing the show with Sterling and Eric, just about weekly now, getting to put all those thoughts onto, a network where we can get it out to the people, which is great. You can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Anthony Mangan. You can see my name there. NY. So you can find me there.
Have you ever considered like a Blues Brothers approach where you put on like one of the hats and the sunglasses, wear it into the bar?
There you go. People would still recognize me. They'd know it's me.
All right. That's going to bring us to our first topic today. And it's one that I'm really excited about because I think it's sort of an outside the box topic. We talk about what we want to see the Bills do on offense, how we want to see them do it. We don't actually talk about what we need to see the Buffalo Bills do on offense this year. I'll tell you what, guys, the Buffalo Bills averaged 19.6 points per game last year, which was the worst of any playoff team. And it was worst by a long shot. Like the next closest team was what? Philly at, I think, Anthony, you were telling me Philly at 24 points
15,
per game.
Yeah, they were 15th overall. Yeah.
So the Bills have some work to do to score more points this year. And our question for today, our one big topic for today is going to be how many of those touchdowns need to be produced by our quarterback, Josh Allen, or a direct result of Josh Allen either throwing or running. So that's going to be our topic for today. Dave, I'm going to let you lead off, and then I know we got a bunch of different takes here about how many touchdowns Josh Allen's going to need to produce in the 2020 season.
Yeah, so let me just first explain kind of my approach here. So we've talked a lot about how many points the Bills are going to need to score a game. Obviously, they were under the 20 mark last year. We've kind of thrown the number around 24 points a game is something that we kind of aspire to be as a team. And if you look up sort of the team averages from last year as far as points per game, the Ravens were on top at 33. And if you go all the way down to 15th, so halfway, the Packers were sitting there at 23.5. So it's almost a 10-point difference from 1st to 15th. And the Bills were 23rd at 19.6. So like clearly a bigger disparity between 1st and 15th than it was from like 15th to 23rd, even though it's like only 8 spots. So what I did was I looked at that and I compared the Bills touchdowns from 2019 to the Packers touchdowns. And there's actually quite similar. The Packers had 26 passing touchdowns, 18 rushing for a total of 44 touchdowns on offense and 22 field goals from Crosby. The Bills had 21 passing touchdowns, 20 from Josh Allen. We know that John Brown threw the one to Singletary in the Thanksgiving game, and 13 rushing. 9 of those were from Josh Allen. So the Bills actually had the same number of field goals as the Packers last year. So in order for the Bills to get up to that total 23.5, and I'll also add this, neither team had a defensive touchdown, so points from that weren't factored in. Micah Hyde had that one kind of fluky return touchdown, which didn't affect the averages too much. So what that means is that the Bills are going to have to score at least 10 more touchdowns next year if they keep the same amount of field goals as they did from the year before. So if you take that into consideration, that means Josh Allen's probably going to have to increase his passing TDs up to somewhere around the 26 range. And even if you figure he rushes for the same amount, because it's going to be really hard for him to rush for 5 more TDs than he did last year, even if he rushes for 3 or 4 more, he's going to still have to run. He's still going to have to run for 8 or 9 touchdowns next year if the running backs account for 4 or 5 more rushing TDs. So what that leads us to is Josh Allen throwing for about 26-ish touchdowns and running for another 8 or 9 next year. So about 34 or so total touchdowns with another 10 rushing TDs coming from the running backs, I think puts us at that 44 touchdown mark, which it gets us to around 24 points a game if we have the same amount of field goals as we had the year before. So that's what I'm saying, 34.
All right, interesting. Sterling, you put a ton of work in for your take. Explain how many touchdowns you think Josh Allen needs in 2020 based on some of the research you've been doing.
Yeah, so what I've done is I put a spreadsheet together of quarterbacks in the last 5 years who have had at least 8 wins. I think wins is a good indicator of success. And of those quarterbacks, that includes Mahomes' 50 passing touchdown season, along with their rushing touchdowns as well. So in my opinion, and this is just the data backs this up, but just like you were saying, Dave, Josh Allen himself would need 26.8 passing touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And I know he'll pass for that, and probably 3.2 rushing touchdowns. That's what he himself would need to average or have for the season, which comes out to 30.1 touchdowns accounted by Josh Allen himself. Now, we know he's dynamic with his legs, so he'll probably have more than 3.2 rushing touchdowns. Now, the passing touchdowns, I mean, you can count Stephon Diggs for at least 6 of those. He averages about 6 touchdowns per year. So I think, in emergence to Dawson Knox, I think Josh can definitely hit that 26.8 average.
All right. So both of you are sort of in an agreement where he needs to throw for 26, but you're differing a little bit. Sterling, you're saying you only need to see 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns, where Dave, you're sort of projecting he does the same exact thing in the red zone and gets himself towards 9. So that's interesting. Eric, what is your take here about how many touchdowns Josh Allen's going to need in the year 2020?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to beat the dead horse here. I'm going to agree with Sterling. I think 26 is a good number. That's exactly what Pat Mahomes had in passing last year. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. So really, Josh Allen had 1 more touchdown than Pat Mahomes last year. When you put it in that perspective, I don't think we have to put all of this pressure on Josh Allen for the team to score more, right? I think Stephon Diggs alone being added to the offense, distracting the defense. So it opens up a lot of lanes. So I think that alone will add to Josh Allen's touchdown total. And I think he could, just keep going with what he's been doing. Just keep this progression going. Yeah, does he need to take a step? Absolutely. But I don't know if it's quite fair to expect, an all-out 30-some touchdown year from him right away. He's still very raw. I mean, that's what the game changers are obviously doing. But I don't think it's quite fair to put all the pressure on Josh Allen. I mean, Singletary's going to be in the second year. I think we could get some more rushing touchdowns through our running backs. And obviously, like I already mentioned, Stephon Diggs and the emergence of Dawson Knox, like Sterling mentioned. So.
All right, Anthony, how about you? We sort of got a general consensus here at about 26, 27 touchdowns. A little difference of opinion in the rushing touchdowns. Is yours going to vary at all, or are you going to stick with the sort of what everyone else has got here?
It actually is. I'm optimistically always, I'm a little higher, right? Because I just think that this offense, in order to take the next step, Josh Allen has to take the next step. Josh Allen's rookie year, he threw for 10 touchdowns, rushed for 8. That was only in 12 games because of the injury. His second year, he played the full season. He went up to 20 touchdowns passing and 9 rushing, which is insane, right? That was like number 8 in the NFL for rushing touchdowns, and all the running backs on all the teams. He was number 8. So, that tells you something about his dynamic run game. But now with the addition of Stephon Diggs, even without Stephon Diggs, I expect him to take another step. And like you mentioned about the offense, scoring 19.6 points a game is not good enough. And what did we hear from the coaching staff? What did we hear from Brandon Beane all through the offseason? The number one thing, we got to score more points. We got to score more points. That's why we got Stephon Diggs. That's why we added Zach Moss, right? So, to me, that means you have to score a touchdown more a game, right? Ideally, yes, to get into the playoffs and to be contending with those teams, I agree that the 24-point per game match would be the lowest we could go. But looking beyond that and saying taking the next step, both Josh Allen and the offense, I think the rushing touchdowns have to come down a little. You're going to have a more dynamic run game. I don't want to put Josh Allen in too many situations where he's definitely going to get hit. But we all know that Josh Allen works the best when he can roll out and decide whether or not everybody's covered and he can just take off. So I'm going to put his rushing touchdowns at about 5, and then his passing touchdowns somewhere up above. Again, if he had 20 last year, I expect him to go to, let's say, with the addition of Diggs now, 27, right? So I put that number right around 32, 33 touchdowns. And then you're talking, that is an offense that is going to contend and win games, right? That is an offense that scores points. Now, don't get me started on the one thing that I think holds our offense back, which is coaching and play calling. A lot of times last year I was frustrated because the team tended to, we're up by 10 points. Let's run, punt, right? And that is not the way you're going to score points in the NFL. So if you want to get it, you got to go after it in the end. And it seems like they're ready to do that this season.
Yeah, that's a good point you made towards the end here. And I'm probably going to give the most explosive take, and I'm not even sure I even believe it, but I just want to sort of differ a little bit from you guys. So you mentioned right about how the coaching staff sort of ran, punted towards the end of some games and tried to milk some leads. The Dallas game is a huge example of that. I think the Cincinnati game, they bungled it for a little bit and then had to come back. So there's a number of games where they used that that tactic at the Denver game as well. So maybe they have more faith in Josh Allen going into year 3 to maybe be a little bit more aggressive, even with a lead. And I'll tell you what, with the talent that Josh Allen has around him, an offensive line, I like that comment from Scott. Bills need to stop playing not to lose.
100%.
With an offensive line that's probably going to be 100% the same as last season, with Dawson Knox and Devin Singletary going into year 2, a more explosive RB2 in Zach Moss, with the addition of a bona fide stud wide receiver in Stephon Diggs, I almost want to say that Josh Allen needs to score somewhere between 38 and 40 touchdowns. And what combined rushing and throwing. And let me explain I'm coming from. Let me explain where I'm coming from. I'm not saying he has to do that. He can easily score between 30 and 35. First of all, if he scores 29 touchdowns again, unless he was injured and Matt Barkley came in and threw another 5 or 6, we're not making the playoffs if we average 19.6 points per game again. So unless our running game turns into Ala freaking Bama, if he gets 29 touchdowns again, we're not making the playoffs. So somewhere between 30 and 35, I think, would be a good number. But
is that passing and rushing?
Yeah, no, passing and rushing combined.
Oh, okay.
That would be a decent number, and that might get us into the playoff equation. But I'm sorry, Josh Allen is never going to have the talent around him for years to come like he does this year. He might have it for 1 or 2 more years, but once we start paying people, he needs to prove that he's like the Aaron Rodgers of the world, who can make like worse talent better and elevate his teammates. And I don't have any faith in Josh Allen to elevate people when what's surrounding him is some of the best talent in the National Football League. He can't put it up there with the Lamar Jacksons, Russell Wilsons, and Patrick Mahomes of the world. You guys see where I'm coming from here?
Yeah, I hold on, man. Let me take this here. So I actually like what you just said, because Josh Allen, I mean, we all know he's got to take the next step and so forth, but I don't know if he'll ever be one of those top flight passers. You know what I'm saying? And I think the coaching staff kind of, if we all look back at last year, okay, Josh Allen, all his starters that were skill position players, they were all new. So, and they didn't have the time. You had Dawson Knox, who missed half a training camp with the hamstring. Devin Singletary was a rookie. They didn't know what they were doing with LaShawn McCoy and so forth. So everybody, and their leading receiver from last year, who the hell knows what happened to Robert Foster? Dude, just sitting in a pine all year. So I'll give Josh a little break on that. But if you look at the tail of the season, they were putting the games in his hands early in the season, and he showed that he wasn't ready to take on that responsibility. That's why they coached the way they did in terms of, hey, you know what? We're just going to run, punt. Because Josh, he had that, we call it, Eric and I call it Wyoming right, where Josh wants to take over the game by himself and not really use his playmakers, even though they were iffy.
But once again, Sterling, you're looking at the first 4 games of last season, not the Dallas game last year when he took over, not the end of the season when he was playing much better and not having 4 turnovers a game like he did versus New England, right? So to me, I think, again, he takes that leap. He gets 29 passing touchdowns at least next year. To me, that makes sense. With the addition of Stephon Diggs, he didn't have the deep ball at all last year. He better have it this year with Stephon Diggs and the guys we have now who can go deep and catch the ball and track it down, right? And I expect the running game to pick up some of the slack, which is the only reason my number wasn't even higher for Josh Allen, because, a pitiful 4 touchdowns from running backs just isn't going to do it like we got last year. So I think if that number is closer to 9 or 10, 5 and 4 between Moss and Singletary, that is a much better round number for the Bills touchdown wise and takes a little bit of pressure off of Josh Allen. But at the same time, that balanced running attack is going to open it up for the passing attack as well. So I still think Josh Allen's going to get his. And Sterling, you always beat up on Josh Allen for not getting it done. I can't wait till he shows you this season exactly what he can do with the weapons he's got now. I'm just
ready for Bills fans, just to be honest. It's okay to like Josh Allen, but criticize him as well. And nobody wants to say, hey, dude, you need to step it up just a little bit more before we, say that you're the franchise quarterback. And I just keep it 100 with Josh, man. I like Josh Allen. I want him to succeed, but I'm not going to say he can do something that he can't.
This is a little taste of our show, by the way. Sterling and I tend to disagree on points and go back and forth.
All right. So, gentlemen, before we head off to the Q&A, I have one more question for everybody. And I don't have the statistic in front of me, And I wish I did, because we sort of had this conversation a little bit, at least you and I did, Anthony, before the show started, where maybe the Bills running game was a little overhyped last year because of Josh Allen. If you look at it, there was no 1,000-yard rusher. There was only 4 total touchdowns. There were all these things. We were good in yards per game. A lot of that because Josh Allen beefed us up. Same with touchdowns. What kind of balance would you like to see from this Bills offense this year? And again, I wish I sort of had that percentage in front of me, but I don't. But you personally, Dave, Anthony, Eric, Sterling, like 60-40, 55-45, what do you want to see the run-to-pass balance be, on a typical day for the Buffalo Bills? Obviously, it's not going to be the same every week because of circumstances, but on a perfect day, what do you want to see those percentages to be? Dave, we'll start with you, and then Eric will go to you guys because I think you guys have had the least amount of time to talk so far. So I'm trying to be a fair facilitator.
That's like turn.
I mean, I'd like to see it a little bit closer to 50-50, but you have to remember we were a top 10 rushing offense last year, even though we only had 4 rushing TDs from running backs. Yes, a lot of that was because of Josh Allen. That's fine. And you think about the guys we have now, you're getting Singletary now going into year 2. You bring in Zach Moss, who you think is going to be a little bit more dynamic than a guy like Frank Gore was, and you still have Josh rushing the ball. So it all depends to me on if Josh's rushes kind of decrease with the addition of Zach Moss, because at the end of the day, I don't necessarily know that we need to change from the balance that we had last year, given that we were still a fairly effective rushing team a year ago. We have the same offensive line returning. We should be able to kind of continue that trend on yards per carry. So, I mean, balance, I'm not so worried about that, right? I think the Bills need to be team specific and sort of how they attack teams this year. The schedule is very difficult. And to Sterling's point, this has got to be a prove it year in a way for Josh, right? That he can go up against a tough schedule versus last year where it was terribly easy, and where there's much higher expectations this year, right? There was really not much expectations last year. So getting back to your question from a balance standpoint, I'm not really going to put a number on it. I think as long as they get a little bit more from Zach Moss than they got from Frank Gore, then I think what they did last year on the ground is going to be fine.
Yeah, I'll go 60-40 rush and then 40% pass, because I mean, outside of Kansas City, the best teams in the league are still power run teams. 3 of the 4 teams in the championship games were all power runs: Green Bay, San Francisco, and Tennessee. I'd love to see the Bills, and I've been saying this for a year, I'd love to see them build a running style team. And especially with Josh Allen adding that dynamic ability, it confuses defenses. I'm just not real sure that our offensive line is built to ground and pound 60-65% of the time. And I don't think they've really added anything to give me more confidence in that area. So I think 60-40 is a good spot, and then kind of roll with it. Like if Josh is really showing good progression, maybe you change it. You adjust, game by game, as I'm sure they do. So, yeah, I think 60-40 is the sweet spot to begin the season.
Yeah, you're right on the money there with the offensive line. I think left to center, Dawkins, Spain, and Moore, that leaves a little bit to be desired in the run blocking department. I think that you'll see the Bills. I think one of the reasons why they want Cody Ford to be their right tackle is they want that right side to lean on with Feliciano and Ford, those 2 road graders, to really help the running game. So,
the addition of Darrell Williams really contributes all that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
a good player, a good sign. I don't think we're gonna be a running team all of a sudden because we added 1 offensive lineman this year.
Mm-hmm. All right, Anthony, then Sterling. What percentages do you guys want to see?
I think the 60-40 is a nice ideal number to throw out there, but I think it's going to change dynamically through the season, right? The way they treated the running backs last year, I think, is the same way they're going to approach it this year, right? So Moss isn't going to get as many touches in that first game as maybe the Bills fans we want to see, right? He's going to get the ball. He's going to get the ball in the second half, maybe 3-4 times, and then slowly work him into the offense. So I think that number could change. Maybe we lean more on the passing game in the beginning of the season, and then as we get established as this 2-headed monster at running back, that might, open it up a little more down the season and maybe even go 50-50. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
I think honestly, it all starts with Josh Allen. What Josh Allen are we going to get? And 60-40 sounds great, right? And I think if the Bills come out in 11 personnel with Devin Singletary, the kid averages 5.1 yards a carry. I mean, it's a no-brainer. The problem is, how much will Dable get cute this season? That's where, and like your guy said, 17 straight pass attempts to start the season. You're being too cute in the playoffs against Houston. He gets too cute in games. That's got to stop. And it's 60-40. But Josh Allen, he's got to take the next step. I need to see are you a franchise quarterback or not? Because if you're not, you got to go, bro. But we know Devin Singletary is going to carry that rock. We know your boy Moss is going to carry that rock well. So, yeah, I expect the running backs to average between 4.7 yards a carry and 5 yards a carry. But how much? I don't know. It's remain to be seen.
It's I don't know if it was 17 straight throws last season, but was anyone else that Jets game like taken aback by how often Josh Allen threw the ball to start that game? Like he ended up doing pretty well until he fumbled and then threw that pick six. But, the pick six wasn't – I don't think it was his fault. The fumble was. But was anyone else taken aback by just how much a guy who comes from that New England system, who we've seen New England run the ball on us 40-plus times a game? Like LeGarrette Blount back in the day used to just skull crush us. I wanted to use another word, but this is a family program. All right. He used to do that to us on a twice-a-year basis. This guy, Brian Dable, comes in, and we have a quarterback who you'd think you'd want to, like, throw 20, 25 a game, and he's chucking it 40, 45 times. Like, it's crazy to me that they do that. I would like to see something around 53-50, but then we had another comment in there somewhere, and what effect does Stephon Diggs have? Do we have to throw more now to keep Stephon Diggs happy? Like, does anyone think that if we try to go 50-50, Stephon Diggs is going to start treating Josh Allen like he treats Kirk Cousins? Like, that could be an issue that we run into as well. So,
well, I certainly don't think I don't think Diggs would be happy not getting a pass thrown his way in the second half, even if we're up by 21 points, right? He's still going to want to get his. So I could see that hopefully causing the offense to do more than just run the ball, as we mentioned before. So.
Well, I think, to be honest with you, this comes down to what is the evolution of the offense going to be? And to Sterling's point, is Josh Allen going to take a step? Because are we going to become that team that now decides that we're comfortable passing the ball as much as we really want to, right? We're talking about opening the season with 17 straight passes. I mean, we've seen the other way happen too with the Patriots, where Brady comes out and chucks it 50 times and they never run the ball. And I get it, it's Tom Brady, but could we be that type of team too, where we like just on a game where no one's expecting it, Josh Allen comes out and chucks it 50 times? He's going to have to take the step to do that. But at the end of the day, it's like this offense needs to evolve. It can't be what it was last year. Diggs is obviously brought in to help do that, and he's going to demand the ball. And I want him to demand the ball because he's the type of guy that you feel confident in throwing it to him whenever you need to. And Josh's going to have to be able to throw it to him even when he doesn't think he's wide open. And that was part of some of the issue last year too, is we had some really nice routes run by John Brown where he was wide open. Not a lot of contested catches last year, other than a few from Dawson Knox. So that's, the evolution of this offense has to happen this year for us to talk about all these things, like scoring a touchdown more a game, Josh Allen hitting these touchdown marks, like all this stuff has to happen. And Daboll's part of that too, like Sterling mentioned. Like he has to be part of that. They have to be working together. And Diggs is going to need to get his, and otherwise, why'd you trade for him?
Yeah, I agree with you, Dave, man. And have you guys ever thought about this though? And I kind of mentioned this to the other guys, but it almost seems like Dable tried to last year make Josh Allen the Tom Brady mold. Just from the approach, and we saw that in early in games where they were throwing the ball a ton, and that kind of worries me, because Josh is, first of all, he's not that kind of player. I mean, he's more of today's NFL quarterback. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think Brian Dable has this idea that he needs to make Josh Allen Tom Brady?
I don't think he has that idea at all, because, I mean, Tom Brady is literally, and who knows, maybe there's this sort of conflict in the room. It doesn't seem like there's a conflict in the room because they talk so glowingly about each other. But Tom Brady is Mr. Dink and Dunk, death by 1,000 paper cuts. I'm going to dump it off to my running back. Josh Allen will hold on to that ball. He will give up that easy dump off in order to try to wait for something to happen downfield. So maybe Brian Daboll is philosophically different from Brian or from Bill Belichick. Maybe Josh Allen and Brian Daboll are having some of that like internal struggle I'm talking about, but I don't think so, because they sure as heck aren't trying to run a New England style offense with the amount of times they're passing it and with the way in which they're trying to pass it. Josh Allen for the last 2 years has been one of the leaders in throwing the ball down the field, like not just dinking and dunking, like throwing it down the field. And he's been holding on to the ball longer than most other quarterbacks in the league. So, yeah, I don't think so. I really don't think Daboll seems to be married to this New England system. Maybe he would have been if we would have gotten our hands on a Sam Darnold or a Baker Mayfield. But with Josh Allen, he doesn't seem to be married to it.
Yeah, it's interesting just because, Josh Allen was one of the leaders in intermediate passing last year. So that's why it gets me thinking that way. You know what I'm saying? Where it, and maybe I think those averages are a little bit skewed because his rookie season, that's all he did was throw the ball down the field. We saw that kind of dial back last year. And when he threw the ball down the field, it was usually an incompletion because he couldn't hit the deep ball. But from 10 to 19 yards, he was money on those.
All right, gentlemen, before we head into the next topic, I will preface this by saying the rest of the show is going to be completely open to you guys, the viewers. So in the comment section, start hitting us up with questions, comments, takes, topics. We, the 5 of us, will react to all of those things. Remember to smash that like button, and remember that super chatters always get priority. So if you want to be heard, you want to guarantee you'll be heard, you either need to ask a really great question or you need to be a super chatter. So hook us up with the super chat. While you guys are hitting us up with some questions over there in the comments section, head over to bffanshop.com when you have a chance. If you go there, guys, is there such thing as having too much Bills gear?
No, clearly Anthony doesn't feel that way.
Every day, let's go.
So clearly there's no such thing as owning too much Buffalo Bills gear. So head over to BF Fan Shop. They got everything for you. Like I said, on page 49, if you go to the very last page, there's even some Bills Guys gear there for you. But they got the Mr. Process. They got the Dig, the Motor and Moss. Everything you need is over at the BF Fan Shop. So head over to bffanshop.com. The already affordable prices are 10% off using the promo code Bills Guys. So it's as easy as typing in the promo code BILLSGUIS, the longest promo code, I think, at Buffalo Fanatics, but it's worth it for that 10% off. All right. Into the questions, Dave. What's our first question here?
So this is one that gets back to a comment Josh made on his media call, you remember, on his Zoom call last week, where he kind of made the comment around how the Bills were undefeated when he was 60% completion percentage or more. But then he also kind of followed that up with a comment of, I'm not going to be a captain check down or anything. So the comment here from Elliot is, we're talking about these plays and his completion percentage and throwing the ball deep or throwing to Diggs. I won't be captain check down. What do you guys feel, or how did you guys react to when he said that? Obviously acknowledging that the completion percentage stat stuck out to him and correlated to Bills wins, but he also made it sound like, or he did say, I'm still going to have fun. I'm still going to play how I want and have fun, and I'm not going to be captain check down. So what do you guys how do you guys read into that?
I think when you add 3 top 10 route runners in the league, I think you got to sling that ball down the field, bro. As simple as that. Josh Allen's got to let it rip.
Yeah, I think it's relieving because there's been so many Bills quarterbacks that are captain check down, and they'll always be known as that. So, but we already knew this. We already knew he wasn't captain check down. You know what? We want him to be deep ball passer, So whatever that takes, the intermediate throws seem to be going really well. And, a couple more screenplays could maybe help, but that's really the only thing I get out of that.
Yeah, to add to that, I'd say as the scientist, I like that you use the word correlation and not causation, right? This is just a coincidence that these two things happen to line up. It doesn't mean that they are directly the relationship, right? Because I wouldn't mind seeing Josh Allen be a 50% passer if that means he's throwing 3 for 6 deep balls for touchdowns, right? It's all a relative term there. And like you guys were saying, we're not going to change who Josh Allen is, right? He's not all of a sudden going to become Mr. Check Down, and we don't want him to be that. So, and I don't think the offense is perfectly designed for him to do that. So it makes sense moving forward that they're going to go with, he's going to be consistently at the level he's at, hopefully a little higher if, the accuracy, he doesn't get as many drops as he's had in the past. The first season obviously was atrocious. Even last year, he had, I think he led the league or was up there in drop passes. That's a big stat too, not dependent on Josh Allen himself.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so Steve, I'm going to let you answer this first question, or this next question first. And the question's from Cameron Taylor, and I think this is a fun one. And Cameron says, who's your favorite new player to watch for this season other than Diggs? So I guess it could be free agent or a draftee, but not someone that we had on the team last year, a new player other than Diggs. Who's going to be your favorite? I already know what your answer is going to be.
It's not going to be Zach Moss. I'm not going to lie to you because I think that Sean McDermott has pretty much tempered expectations with his comments about some of the rookies. So the player I'm actually going to go with here is Mario Addison, and I think it's because Mario Addison is going to play a real joker role on this defense this year. Mario Addison, we're paying this guy $13 million, right? I don't think he's going to be a starter. I don't think he's going to be our starting right end. Jerry Hughes is there. I honestly think because of the continuity and because of the way the offseason is, I think it's probably more likely than not that Trent Murphy is probably still going to be our starting left end on day one of the season. I think Mario Addison is a guy who's going to come off the bench, and they're literally just before he comes off the bench every week, Leslie Frazier's going to whisper in his ear. He's going to pull his helmet close to him, and he's going to say, "Go get that quarterback. Go get him." I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've already finished 2 of my rum and coke, so I'm feeling pretty good right now. Anyway, he's just going to whisper that to Mario Addison, be like, "Mario, your job is just to go get that quarterback." This is a guy who played in that Sean McDermott 43. This is a guy who played and had 9.5 sacks last year in a 34 defense. So whether he's coming in to give a breather to Jerry Hughes, whether he's coming in to give a breather to Trent Murphy, whether he's coming in and standing up and filling that A.J. Klein role as a strong side linebacker and either blitzing from the edge or blitzing over the middle, I think that Mario Addison's only job this year is going to be to wreak havoc on the opposing team's quarterback. And I think this is the first time that this might be his sole responsibility. So I'm really looking forward to see what Mario Addison can do. I've been saying this for a while now. I think we're really sleeping on him. I think everyone's happy he's here, but I don't think anyone understands the magnitude of play that this guy could possibly make if utilized correctly and if we get a chance to sort of implement what we want to implement, what this coaching staff wants to implement with this shortened off season.
All right, Sterling, what about you? Who are you looking forward to?
I'm going to say Josh Norman. I think Josh Norman's going to have that Peanut Tillman kind of approach to the game. I mean, his pass defense, it's been kind of shoddy lately, but they said he wasn't in the right system. So I think being in Sean McDermott's system again, I think maybe, and we also got to remember that he's such a willing tackler. I mean, the dude can actually hit, and we don't really have that at the cornerback position. So, and I love the swag he has. Like, I love a dude that's going to get out there and just talk crap all day. So you got Trey on one side. We know he's going to give it. Levi Wallace, all right, he's serviceable. But I think Josh Norman in the right system, staying healthy, I think he's going to be lights out this year for sure.
Anthony, how about you?
Yeah, I like that answer because, you don't pay a guy $6 million and have him play less than half the snaps, right? So I think they really believe in Josh Norman. But I'm going to have to go with my guy, Zach Moss. We talked a lot on our podcast leading up to the draft, like the guys we liked, and I've been on the Zach Moss train for a long time now. So I cannot wait to see him suit up for the Bills and get going and play for us. This was my first season evaluating the draft and picking players. And I ever since we started talking about it, I said Zach Moss in the 3rd round to the Bills. I love it. And I'm just so excited that actually happened. And it'll be interesting to see the dynamic between those two in the backfield.
You see, Dave, I wasn't the only one.
I still owe you that Utah shirt, by the way. Yeah. Eric, how about you?
I'll go with the elephant in the room. I think it's AJ Epinesa. I mean, you got such a good value for this guy in the draft, and he fell a long ways. I mean, early in the draft process, I think we saw him in the top 20 pick. Sometimes he was top 15. So for him to fall to 54, I mean, really, there's a lot of question marks on what we actually have here. So it's going to be interesting to watch how Sean McDermott uses him, and then how much he can get out of him. is this guy going to be a 10-year player? Is he going to contribute right away? Because, I mean, Shaq Lawson kind of had a coming out year last year, and that's a pretty big hole, behind Trent Murphy. So, well, it'll be interesting to see where they put Epinesa and see if he can live up to the Shaq Lawson numbers.
Yeah. I mean, look, two guys I think that I'm looking at, I'll just put them as like kind of a group together, but I want to see what Quentin Jefferson and Vernon Butler do as guys that are kind of under the radar signings on the D line. I think Quentin Jefferson's going to be kind of like a do-it-all guy on the defensive line. So under the radar guy, I'm going to pay attention to.
How about Tyler Bass?
Yeah, Tyler Bass. That's going to be. Is that? I mean, that could be a real competition.
If he makes
this son,
most watched player on the team, I think, as far as new additions, because he can make a season.
All right, Matthew, ask your question, man. We'll answer it. I've seen you 3 times now. You're like, I got a question. Ask the question, man. We'll answer it. So
it's my buddy from Syracuse who is not a Bills fan, but he is a sports fan. We have it out all the time, so I'm interested to hear what he's got to say.
Yeah.
Ask away, Matt.
Yeah, so, Matt, while you do that, and I promise you, Matt, we will answer your question next unless we get a super chat. We are going to hook up our girl Aimee here, and she asked, who's the breakout player this year on offense? So here is my challenge to you. Name a breakout player on the offense this year, but his name cannot be Stefon Diggs. His name cannot be Stefon Diggs. We're going to go order from top to bottom. So we're going to go Dave, Anthony, we're going to go Eric, Sterling, and then myself. We're going to go in that order. We're going to name a guy. You have about 10 seconds to explain why. And you can't repeat. So if Dave says someone, the next person can't say that person. So I'm screwed. I already know I'm screwed. So the rest of you, Dave, we'll start with you. Who's the breakout player on offense? Not me.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm going to take an easy one here. It's going to be Dawson Knox. I think that after getting a year under his belt as a rookie, obviously had his ups and downs, some bad drops, but also some really great catches. And if adding Diggs can open things up in the middle of the field for Knox and Beasley, I think it seems like Knox is going to be a guy they're going to count on a lot this year. He was in the workouts there with Josh in Florida. And I'm expecting big things out of him because he seems like he can be really a complete tight end. And I'm looking for that year two breakout from Knox.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with the answer that Sterling probably would have said, which is Devin Singletary, because I think we seem to forget a little bit about how good Singletary was at the end of the season and how good he looks when you put the ball in his hand. And I just think this year he could take that next big step and be one of the best running backs in the NFL if we give him his touches, which, again, coming into this year, he seems to be the guy who's going to get the majority of them, even with Zach Moss.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Cole Beasley. I think the addition of Stefon Diggs is going to open up his game, and he's going to have one-on-one matchups with linebackers, and that's really – he's already got the relationship with Josh Allen from last year. I thought they started growing late in the year, and that's going to continue to grow, no doubt about it.
I'm going to go Cody Ford. I think he's going to solidify that right tackle position. I mean, and if you look at him, he got better throughout the year last year, and I think he has a really good athletic profile. He's strong. I think he'll really settle in at right tackle this year.
All right.
By the way, I was just going to say Cole Beasley is a sneaky one. He had his career high in touchdowns last year with the Bills. So 6 TDs for him last year is a sneaky good pick there, Eric. I like that.
All right. I am going to go out on a limb here. I could say John Brown. I could say Zach Moss. I could say Josh Allen. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Gabe Davis. And here's why. I've mentioned before, this is the guy who right now in his career is a one-trick pony. He is a vertical receiver. So I would love to see the Buffalo Bills put Stefon Diggs on one side, put John Brown on the other side, put Gabe Davis in the slot and run him verticals all day, because those safeties and those corners are going to be thinking about the speed of Diggs and Brown, and they're going to be so worried about the boundaries that they're going to give mismatches galore to Gabe Davis, whether it's on a smaller nickel corner, on a safety, or on a linebacker. And I think if Josh Allen can start connecting on that deep ball, he can make some big plays down the field to Gabe Davis, running those verticals from the slot. So I'm going to go with Gabe Davis. And that one-trick pony, Greg, he's a one-trick pony.
Greg's a no-trick pony, of course, so it's okay.
All right. Well, Greg's pretty smart, I guess.
Yeah, Greg's just a little self-deprecating. It's okay. We all can be. So we still love you, Greg.
All right. Did we get that? Did we get that question?
He did post the question. I don't know if you guys saw it.
Okay, here it is. I got it. So we finally got the question from Matthew. Says, now that TB12 is gone and the division is really yours to win, meaning the Bills, if they don't get it done, are you willing to admit that Allen might not be the answer, assuming his flaws are consistent?
I'm going to take this one.
Okay, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, Matt being my friend, and clearly he hasn't heard the 2-minute promo for our show this week that we did, because in that clip, I say definitively, absolutely, that this is the season Josh Allen has to take that next step, and absolutely he has to show improvement. He's got probably one of the best offenses in the NFL now around him. If he can't take that next step, then I am 100% content in saying, you are not the guy. We're going to move on and try and find somebody else. And who knows, maybe sign Cam Newton next year if it comes down to that. But I firmly still believe that Josh Allen will get it done and that he will be in the MVP conversation at the end of next season when the Bills have 12 wins. So yes, Matt, you get what you want if the Bills don't do what I think they're going to do.
So I guess the question is, if they don't get it done, meaning they don't win the division, right? And I think that's the point. Like Steve and I have made in the past, that like the total number of wins, I guess, is less important to us. It's more about winning the division. We know the schedule's tough. 9 wins could get it done as far as winning the division. The other, the Pats are down TB12. The Jets and Dolphins are going to be kind of in the mix too. It's going to be a dogfight all year. Everyone's got a tough schedule in the AFC East, so. It is ours to take, but we now have to go out and do it, right? So I think some of this has to come into context as well. Like if we don't win the division and Josh Allen has an incredible year, I don't see how those two kind of would happen independently of each other. But I guess it's possible that he has a great year and we still don't win the division. Weirder things have happened, but we'll have to see.
Right. Our man Dried Ocean with the comment, hypothetical question. Would you trade a second Jordan Poyer and Quentin Spain for Jamal Adams? I'm going to start this one off by saying I don't think the Jets would take that deal. I don't think they would trade it within the division, and I do not think that would be enough. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there's any way in the world in which the New York Jets would trade Jamal Adams to the Buffalo Bills?
Well, first of all, he's not going to trade him in division. Hey, if you guys play Madden, when you try to make those trades with the CPU and it says not interested, yeah, that's what it's going to say. A fat not interested. And it's going to be super red, so it ain't happening.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. They're not going to trade him within the division. And even if, in theory, we could get Jamal Adams, it would be a higher asking price than this, I would imagine. First-round pick would probably be involved in some form or fashion. Plus, it seemed like he already kind of made his list of teams out that he's willing to go to. Not that he has total say in that, but again, they're not going to trade him within the division to a team that's on the cusp of potentially winning the division. So just don't see it happening. But yeah, I
would take him.
Yeah, I would take him.
Oh, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got over 100 of you here live right now viewing us. The floor is open to all of you. So shoot us whatever topics, questions, takes that you have. We are open to answering them. And again, remember, super chatters always get priority. Smash that like. But hit us up with any questions that you want to talk about, and we will talk about it. We still got about 15 minutes left here. I see we got one from Dusty here.
Yeah, I think he's referring to – I assume he's referring to A.J. Klein here, who loses their starting job first. A.J. Klein on the strong side, Star in the middle, or Trent Murphy at the left end. This is an interesting question. We've drafted Epinesa, obviously. We've got a guy like Voshon Joseph still sitting on the roster. And we have guys like Harrison Phillips and Vernon Butler that Harrison coming back from injury and Vernon Butler, former first rounder. I would probably say Trent Murphy is the most likely, but I'm not a big AJ Klein guy. So I've been rooting for Voshon Joseph to kind of take that job from him at some point.
We have a comment from Greg in the comment section. He says, I think it sort of ties into this. He says, who is a player who's not projected in the starting lineup, but will be by week 12? And I think that's a great question because I've made this comment before. Levi Wallace, Matt Milano, they sort of took a while to work their way into the starting lineup. And I think you could see that for a couple of players this year. because of all of this COVID-19 stuff? And the answer I'm going to give here to sort of tie in Greg's question and Dusty's question is I'm going to go with A.J. Klein. And I think the replacement is going to be Voshon Joseph. If you look at Voshon Joseph physically, he's very similar to Shaq Thompson and Thomas Davis. I think he's a guy where if there's a full off season, he could have played a bigger role earlier, but might take more time. So it's going to be really interesting to see if maybe the Bills, instead of going with that old school, like strong side linebacker, guy against the run, A.J. Klein on first and second down, either going to big nickel or Mario Addison on third down, whether you need a pass rusher or you need to drop a guy back, instead of sort of making things obvious to the defense what you're doing. How about getting a guy like Voshon Joseph where there's a little more mystique to it? Is he going to drop back? Is he going to blitz? Is he going to set the edge? Like, what is Voshon Joseph going to do? I don't think it's going to happen right away because of, again, all the COVID stuff going on. But it'll be really interesting to see if the Buffalo Bills try to take that approach with Voshon Joseph, shift him over to that strong side linebacker spot, or if they mainly keep him as a backup to Matt Milano to hedge their bets if he either gets hurt or has to walk in free agency after next year.
Any thoughts from you guys on this one?
Yeah, I'd say of the ones of the three listed there, Starr is probably the least likely for me to lose his job because the team kind of made their statement known when they changed his contract and guaranteed him the money for this year. I think he's definitely expendable after this season if they decide, he's not the guy, or to go with one of the younger guys in his spot. And Trent Murphy, for me, is probably the least likely, as we've talked about him being one of the possible roster cuts because of his salary and because of the fact that we're stacked on the line. Although now, with the COVID situation, maybe that makes it a little less likely for him to get cut. But maybe by midseason, somebody has stepped up and taken his starting job.
I'm going to go with Star Lotulelei on that, just because I think Harrison Phillips, before he got injured, was playing like he was the best defensive lineman on the Buffalo Bills last season. And I'm tired of it, bro. Star is kind of, and look, they've taken the training wheels off of Tremaine Edmonds and the linebackers, but Star just doesn't cut it for me, man. I think Harrison Phillips gives you a little bit more penetration, and he's a better run stopper.
Well, Star did have a reception last year.
Sorry, before this, Brian, we're just not going to talk about it, man. We're not talking about this tonight.
No, I'm removing that question. I'm removing that question. Sorry. It's just heartbreak. It's just heartbreak. Oh man.
Sorry,
Eric, any final thoughts on that last question?
Sorry, I just wanted to mention that Star Lotulelei had an interception last year.
Yeah. He did.
He did. What did he do? I could have did that, bro.
Anyway, Trent Murphy is the only one. He has 1 year left on his contract. The other guys have over 2 years. So I think Trent Murphy in that instance.
All right, this is an interesting one we've got here next. We kind of know who our at least top three. We know who our top three receivers are with Diggs, Beasley, and Brown. Who are going to be the wide receivers 4 and 5 that make this team? You've got guys like Andre Roberts, Gabe Davis, Isaiah Hodgins, Isaiah McKenzie, Duke Williams. So who do you guys think are going to be Ray McLeod? Who are going to be the 4th and 5th wide receivers come cut down day on this team?
Well, I think number 5 is certainly Andre Roberts. I know there's a time last year he was leading the league in average yards per return. I'm not sure if he finished the season as number 1, but I think that helps the team a ton when you can get big chunk plays on your returns, especially with an offense that we're not real sure about yet. Are they explosive or not? So I think Andre Roberts definitely makes the roster and fills that 5 spot. And I'm going to go with Gabe Davis just because of his unique style. We don't have his skill set on the roster. The guy who can go up and get it, maybe in the red zone, maybe on the third and 5, 3rd and 10, So I'll go with those 2 guys. I think Isaiah McKenzie is certainly a sneaky player as well.
Well, I definitely think that Andre Roberts is now pretty much a lock to make the roster, but I don't see him as wide receiver 4 or 5. He's wide receiver 6 or 7. He's definitely going to make it, but the competition isn't with him in my mind, and I don't think he's going to get the reps at wide receiver to be wide receiver 4 or 5. So, but having drafted Gabe Davis as 4th round, I think he's definitely going to be the guy at 4. The biggest competition for me, and again, it depends on what kind of spread we're doing, but the competition for 5 is going to be the big man, right? Like last year, I was clamoring for Duke Williams to be put in more just because he was that tall, deep, big guy threat that we could use in the red zone. But maybe that changes to now Isaiah Hodgins, and if he can be that guy and beat out Duke Williams, then maybe it's him in that position. But that's definitely, I think, the most interesting competition at this point on the team.
I would say for 4, I would say Gabe Davis. And 5, I'm going to go Robert Foster. I think Robert Foster gives you more dynamic ability than Isaiah McKenzie. And I think Andre Roberts is wide receiver 6.
So you think Hodgins probably maybe makes his way out of the practice squad, or maybe if we do keep 7, does Hodgins make it as your 7th?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I like that.
I think the X factor. I think the X factor here is Lee Smith, Lee Smith and Tommy Sweeney. Because if you look at that tight end room last year, Croft got hurt, Knox got hurt. There was a lot of question marks in the tight end room last year. We ended up keeping 4 tight ends plus Patrick DeMarco. So Tommy Sweeney can come into training camp and he can straight up beat out Lee Smith, show he's just as capable of pass blocker, show he's improved his hands because he lost focus a little bit and had a couple of drops last year. If Tommy Sweeney can come in and straight up earn TE3 and Lee Smith can be cut, that opens a spot for a 7th wide receiver, because I think right now Gabe Davis is your 4. I think right now Andre Roberts is your 6. So the question mark comes down to, is it Duke Williams? Is it Isaiah McKenzie? Is it Robert Foster? Or is it Isaiah Hodgins? I would personally like it for it to be Isaiah Hodgins, because his analytics in the red zone is just disgusting. And I want to see what that guy can do in the red zone. It's ridiculous what that guy did in the red zone in college. But I would like to see a combination of Hodgins and McKenzie, mostly because I think Tywan Jones can do the gunning on special teams that Robert Foster did last year. And I really want Isaiah McKenzie's speed, like those jet sweeps and stuff, because I think that's the one element our running back room is missing right now. We don't have that speed element in the running back room. So I'd like the Bills to keep 7. I'd like for it to be Hodgins and McKenzie to go along with Roberts there in the back half.
Nice. Okay, guys, this one's interesting. So we've got the same, theoretically we have the same starting offensive line returning this year, presuming that, Ford's still the guy at right tackle. So if you look at this offensive line, who is the biggest weakness or hole? Is it Feliciano? Is it Ford? Or is it maybe someone else that, that we're not talking about? Do we even really have a hole on the offensive line? I mean, it's continuity. He's back. So, Sterling, we'll start with you, I think, because you were talking about Cody Ford being your breakout guy for this year. So who do you think's the weakest link on this offensive line?
Yeah, if you're looking at it just from a piece of paper standpoint, yeah, it's easy to point at Cody Ford, but I think Feliciano has reached his ceiling. Don't you think? I don't think he's going to get any better than he was. Otherwise, I don't think the Raiders they would have made a way to keep him. But I think Cody Ford he's going to be a breakout star this year. I really do think the dude is just mean and nasty. I think he's going to set the tone for the offense, just like Spain did last year.
Yeah, for me, I just think the problem, if you look at it from the perspective of the defense, which part of the Bills' offensive line do they want to attack? I still think it's going to be Cody Ford, and he's the one who has the most to prove on this offensive line. I do agree that he can still grow the most, and Feliciano is what he is, but still consistency-wise, the defenses are going to attack Cody Ford. That's going to be where they see the weakness. That's going to be where the blood is in the water, right? So he's got to prove that he can get it done, and hopefully he does. Obviously, the Bills believe that he can take that next step this year.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point that they are going to attack Cody Ford, and I'm not real sure that the Bills have a good backup plan at right tackle. If Cody Ford doesn't get it done, what is the backup plan? I think there's plenty of options to fill the guard spots on this team, but I'm not real sure about the right tackle. Is it Darrell Williams?
Yeah, I think he would be the swing guy, right or left.
Or Nsekhe.
Correct.
Yeah. The problem you have there is Nsekhe's going into the last year in his contract. Feliciano's going into the last year in his contract. So what's the long-term implication now of if Ford doesn't pan out at right tackle, do you then kick him inside? Or do you kind of hope that he does break out and maybe, find it easier to kind of backfill that right guard spot? You still have a guy like Spencer Long on contract. I'm not totally impressed with him, but, there are guards. Guards are probably going to be easier to find on the market than, pretty serviceable right tackles. So, All right. Here's a good one from Jonathan, our guy. He's here every week. So thanks, Jonathan. Your good comments coming through from you every week. Who's your surprise cut before the season starts? So I guess this would be when final cuts come down, when we get to the final 53. Who's a guy that maybe we aren't talking about as even a realistic thought of not making the team, but could be a surprise cut? Who wants to take it?
I got one. I got Spencer Long. I think everyone just assumes that Spencer Long is our swing guy in the interior. But whenever Mitch Morse gets hurt, it's always Feliciano who kicks in. We now have Darrell Williams, who I think has right guard, right tackle flex. Ty Nseki, I think, is going to definitely be your number one left tackle because he's the only other player on this team that has the athleticism to play left tackle. So if the Buffalo Bills are looking at their top five, and then they have Williams, and then they have Nseki, guy like Evan Bain, who's younger, can come in and straight up just beat Spencer Long 1-for-1. Ryan Bates, who's got a whole bunch of flexibility, can come in, beat him 1-for-1. Ike Butker can come in and beat him 1-on-1. So maybe the Bills look at an opportunity here. Like, we got Nseki, we got Williams, we got some older guys. Feliciano can kick into center. Maybe we keep a younger guy over a veteran like Spencer Long, who's taking up $3 million on our salary cap because we eat nothing, and then we can roll that money over next year. So maybe Spencer Long is the guy who, just because of maybe his age and some of the other depth on the offensive line, could be a cut to keep some of those younger guys to continue to develop them in the Buffalo Bills offensive line.
Yeah, I'll take the next one then, because the one guy that, I think could be cut, maybe not as a critical position on the team, but Pat DeMarco. I think that, it could be time to move on from him at fullback and find either his replacement on who's the guy, the undrafted Gillum, right? Or, maybe just move on in general from him. But he was looked at as a leadership guy in the clubhouse, I think, in general. But how much is he contributing to the team, and how much can they continue to hold on to him as a roster spot when we're talking about wanting to keep, 7 wide receivers and 8 offensive linemen? Something's got to give. So he might be the one that I could see being cut that I haven't really heard much talk about.
I got one that's shocking for you. Matt Barkley. I don't trust Matt Barkley to come in the game and do too much. And I know him and Josh are buddies, but I don't need you, bro. Like, deuces. I think the Bills could go out and sign another veteran quarterback, or they see what they have him from. Because, Josh Allen, no one plans on Josh Allen getting hurt, right? But I think you can have somebody else to carry that clipboard, bro.
Yeah, and I'll go with Tyler Kroft. I just don't think he, did much last year. And then there's six guys basically on the roster going into camp this year at tight end. So I think Tyler Kroft's the obvious cut there, because I think Dawson Knox could fill the role, and I think they're high on Tommy Sweeney. And, obviously Lee Smith's kind of a role player for them with the blocking. So I think Tyler Kroft would be the obvious choice.
Mm-hmm. And I think Tommy Sweeney could potentially fill some of what DeMarco is doing as well, potentially, right, if he can develop some of that. So I'm going to say, look, this is tough, right, because there's a lot of guys. We have a lot of competition. There's a lot of depth on this team. I'm going to go with a throwback to like something we talked about just very quickly in the middle of the show. Stephen Hauschka, could he be a surprise cut before the season starts, with Tyler Bass potentially winning that job? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but we're talking about surprise cuts. That would be a surprise, I think, right, for Hauschka to kind of get the axe, because he's always kind of like, you always kind of see him in the videos with the team, and like he's kind of like pretty well connected with some of the leadership on the team as well. But look, man, we need a guy that can freaking be relied on, can be healthy. That Browns game last year just kind of really was it for me on that. And like, I don't know if the guy was fully healthy or not, but he's older now, and we got to start thinking about the future here. So, Steve-O, I'm going to let you read Dusty's comment there, and then we've got a super chat right after that.
Oh, nice. All right. So Dusty says, I just want to thank you guys. I had a tough day treating patients, and this content is really great. So, Dusty, we thank you, dude. Like, literally,
thank you. Yes.
Appreciate that.
If you would have asked Dave and us a year ago that we would be doing a show like this, and there would be 20, 30 people commenting along with us and shooting us questions and topics, the two of us would be like, you're lying. So we are just so grateful for you guys, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you. We got a super chat here from Sean Brown. You want to read it? Thank you, Sean. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that super chat. So Sean says, if Knox and Croft don't live up to the potential, but the Bills are still having a solid season, can you see us going for a true tight end one, like a elite tight end, I guess, before the trade deadline? I don't, just because who's going to trade you one, right? Like most of the teams that have the elite tight ends are teams that are going to be in playoff contention. You think about George Kittle, you think about Travis Kelce. Is there going to be a guy that's trade worthy? I don't know, right? Like, I don't know if there's going to be a guy that's going to be that you're going to get in a trade that's going to be really that much better than, let's say, Dawson Knox midway through the season. Can you guys think of anyone that maybe like a non-playoff contending team has that would be willing to trade an elite tight end?
I got a name for you.
Njoku and Howard.
Njoku was the one that came to mind for me.
I'm going to say OJ Howard. I think now that Brady has his guy in Gronkowski, I think what are you going to do with OJ Howard's contract? Because you're not going to pay him, because your plan is to keep Gronkowski and Brady for the next 2 to 3 years. I don't think that really fits well with what Tampa Bay's doing. So I could really see OJ Howard being a Buffalo Bill if that scenario were to play out.
And they still have Cameron Brate, who's a little bit underrated as well. So they could afford to trade OJ Howard. So that's a good name there, Sterling. Anthony, who were you going to mention?
I was agreeing with you two on those. I was going to say Njoku, because I just don't think the Browns are going to be contenders, and they're going to be giving up. They could be at that point willing to part ways with somebody.
Here's an interesting one. Evan Ingram as a trade target if the Giants are still crap next year. That's interesting. I don't know. He's been pretty good, and I think the Giants want him to grow with Daniel Jones. Would the Giants be willing to trade a guy like Evan Ingram if they're tanking towards the trade deadline? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a nice name. It's a nice name. Don't get me wrong. Like, love to have him, but whew.
I got 2 words for you: Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman will trade.
Nobody knows.
Hey, I think Evan Ingram's a trade target. Evan Ingram can't stay healthy. That dude is always hurt, and so I think they would let him go.
Yeah.
Well, where did they draft him? I think second round, first round. So they're probably going to have a high value on him at this point. It's probably easier to keep him than trade him away for a 5th round pick or something.
But I'm not sure if Evan Ingram's an all.
He was a first rounder.
First rounder, yeah, I thought so.
In the 20s, yeah. What about you, Eric? Do you have any names at tight end that could be interesting?
We're talking about tight end number 1, and there's just not a lot of those guys in the league. I was really high on TJ Hawkinson. I'll go ahead and drop that again. But I thought I was high on him for the Bills. Went with that Oliver. But I think there's about probably 10 to 12 tight ends that are actually tight end 1 who can do it all, can block, can catch. And one tricky one is Dallas Goedert for Philadelphia. They have Zach Ertz there. I think he may be expendable. I know he's a big part of the offense, but if they wanted to move in a different direction with the new weapons they have, he may be available. And he's definitely could fill that number 1 role, tight end number 1. He's a do-it-all guy, So I think he's a sneaky guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, there were some games last year where he outshined Ertz. So, yeah, he's definitely a name. But is he a real tight end 1 though? I guess he hasn't really had the chance to show it yet, but he did have some flashes last year. I liked what I saw from him.
I will say this: if Dawson Knox turns into a tight end 1, I think the Bills are completely okay with having a tight end 1. But at the same time, you look at the way they're building this roster: Trey White, Matt Milano, Tremaine Edmonds, Deion Dawkins, Josh Allen, all these guys that they're going to have to pay. You can create an offense without a tight end. I mean, you don't need to have that studly tight end. Is it nice? Yeah, but is that going to be Josh Allen's go-to guy? Can you recreate it with a big slot receiver like an Isaiah Hodgins? Can you sort of just have 2 or 3 decent tight ends that you just plug in and out, like a niche blocking guy, a niche receiving guy? Like, are there ways you can make it work if Dawson Knox doesn't work out? I think the Bills would rather go the discount route than having to pay a guy at the tight end position. I just don't know if that's a position the Buffalo Bills are going to value.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it with this one, because this is an interesting one. I think we probably will all have similar answers here. Truth to Hearts, another loyal listener, comes on every week and gives some good comments. So if you have to draft all current Bills players and you can only, I guess, pick 5 that you're going to start your team with, Who were you gonna pick? And I'll go first, just really quick. So I'm gonna take Josh. I'll take Tremaine Edmonds. I'll take Trey White. I'll take Milano, and I will take Stephon Diggs.
Let's try something different here, Dave. How about this? We will start with Sterling and work our way backwards to me, and we each choose one since there's 5 of us here, right?
Okay, sounds good.
So Sterling, who's your first pick of all 53 players on the Buffalo Bills roster?
Oh man, give me Trey White. He is quarterback number 2 in the league, so I'll take.
Eric?
You know me, I love me some Josh Allen, so I'll go all in on Josh Allen.
All right. Anthony?
All right. If he picks Josh Allen, I got to go Stephon Diggs. We got to give him somebody to throw to. That's the number 1 guy.
Yeah. And I'm going with Tremaine Edmonds, the quarterback of the defense, 22 years young, excuse me.
Guess they're really doing this to me, huh? Well, now I got nothing there. I am I've got it down to Milano and Oliver, and I'm going to go with Matt Milano. I really love me some Matt Milano. I think that
it's tough to argue that, man. It's tough to argue that.
Oh, boy.
I think that he is ready to break out and become one of the upper echelon linebackers in this league, just like Tremaine Edmonds is. I think those two are going to be absolute studs this year with an improved defensive line in front of them. So I'm going to go with Matt Milano.
I like that choice because Sterling and I kind of had it out toward the end of the season talking about which guys are extendable for the Bills at this point and who do you give the money to. And Milano was one of the guys that we disagreed on, and I made the argument for that he is a key part of the defense and somebody we should keep. But at the same time, there's only so much money to go around, and there's a lot of young guys that they're going to have to pay moving forward. So something has to give, right? So, but Milano is definitely one of the guys that I would want to keep.
All right, gentlemen. I want to thank you guys so much. I'm going to give you one more chance to sort of I'm going to give all 3 of you a chance to sell your pod again real quick before we head out. And as these guys are selling you their pod, which I will say to you, I just recently discovered it, and I listened to the episode with Dean. I listened to the episode with Dean Kindig from Draft Tech. I listened to the episode with Greg Tomsett. I listened to my episode because I'm just a narcissist, but I will say I'm a big fan of the show, so I will give them a chance to sell it. We went 15 minutes over because these guys are so good, but I will say we always support our super chatters. So if while they are talking, while they are selling their podcast, we have another super chatter come in, we will stay on and answer that question and discuss that topic. So guys, we will give you guys the show to close it out here. Sell your podcast to the listeners here.
Well, we're not Buffalo Fanatics. Y'all are the OGs, but we're a little different, man. We're a Buffalo Bills backers podcast, and it's just, we just have fun. It's we're on all major platforms. You can find us on Twitter at the Hoof Podcast, and then us 3, we're always on there chopping it up. Mine is Provoost Sterling on Twitter. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, at Anthony Mangan, spelled out there, NY. And like Sterling said, our show is just 3 guys, 3 different personalities, 3 different backgrounds. It really brings a great dynamic to our show, and we really do. It's just us talking, and it's just how we would if we were at the bar having a beer.
Yeah, my Twitter handle's at EFBrown06. And yeah, we love talking Bills. Big on the draft during that time of year. But we record on Tuesday nights, and the pod's usually available Wednesday. And like you said, it's on all major platforms as well as YouTube. Check us out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure. And as always, we're going to close out the show with our signature Go Bills.
Go Bills. Go Bills, baby.
And then the awkwardness as I end the podcast